into this evening's agenda, I want to thank our hosts here at Shiloh Temple International Ministries for all of their gracious hospitality. And I want to invite Pastor Andre Dukes to come forward and welcome you to the space.
Good evening, good evening. So sorry to run from the back to the front. To our distinguished panel and our Attorney General, Keith Ellison, fellow Northsider. My name is Pastor Andre Dukes. I am the executive pastor here at Shiloh Temple International Ministries. Our senior pastor is the Honorable Bishop Richard D. Howell Jr., who is out of town tonight, but sends his love to all of you and welcome to Shiloh Temple International Ministries. Make yourselves at home and have a great discussion tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So to get us a little bit acclimated, why are we here tonight? So no matter where you came from to be here tonight, no matter where you might be watching this live stream from tonight, maybe you're watching it from your car as you're driving here to be with us in person, you may be feeling pain from decisions made by the federal administration in Washington, D.C. Many of us in this room and many of you watching at home stepped up to protect our neighbors and stand up to a paramilitary occupation during Operation Metro Surge. We joined together and we formed a powerful movement in Minnesota and we said no to tyranny. But what we did was actually greater than that. Every time we blew a whistle, every time we walked kids to school or delivered groceries to a neighbor or helped families stay in their homes, we said yes to human dignity, yes to democracy, yes to the power that we can build when we all stand together. So we are all here tonight because we know that if we want to protect what is good in our communities, what is good in our state and in our country, that we can only do it together. And we're here tonight because even together we can't do it on our own. So the movements that we build need to include those of us who will get into the streets to protect our neighbors. Oh yeah. Those of us who can change hearts and minds, those of us who can change public policy, and those who can fight and win for us in the court of law. In these unprecedented times, it is a cliche, but it is true. In these unprecedented times, our state attorneys general have been holding the line, protecting our rights and freedoms, and just like us, they've been working together to do it. Just like us, our state AGs are stronger together. In just the past year, our state AGs have filed over 75 lawsuits, pushing back against unlawful actions taken by our own federal government. Their coordinated collective efforts in courtrooms across this country matches the energy of our coordinated collective efforts in communities across our country. When our rights are under attack, our attorneys general fight for us. Whether we are fighting corporate greed or our own federal government, these are who will fight for us and win. And we need to celebrate those wins along the way, and that's another reason why we're here. We should celebrate what we all did to stand up to authoritarianism during Operation Metro Surge. We should celebrate the sheer number and results of all the lawsuits filed by attorneys general across the country. Here in Minnesota, we kept the federal government from withholding billions of dollars that pay for everything from bridges and roads to disaster preparedness, for healthcare research, sex education programs, clean energy projects, and more. The same is true in Illinois and in Oregon and in every state with an attorney general who chooses to join this coalition. Our own government, our own federal government, is threatening to defund the basic services we all rely on, and our AGs are saying absolutely not. We're here tonight because we are all the leaders that this moment requires. If we want government to work, if we want to protect human dignity, democracy, and the rule of law, it will take all of us working together to face the challenges ahead. Which brings us here tonight to the Federal Oversight and Accountability Town Hall. We have with us here tonight just three of the Attorneys General in the Multi-State Coalition. Attorney General Kwame Raoul from Illinois. Attorney General Dan Rayfield from Oregon. And Minnesota and the North Side's own Attorney General, my lawyer, the people's lawyer, Keith Ellison. You'll hear from them in just a sec. Tonight is an opportunity to hear directly from all of them, and they'll hear from all of us about how federal overreach is impacting us here at home. Our feedback will help them continue to coordinate their efforts more effectively to fight for all of us in 2026 and beyond. And throughout the evening, they will share their updates and insights into their work. Together, we'll walk out of this room smarter, stronger, and more determined than we walked in. So just a couple of logistics. This evening's forum is going to be about 2 hours. In a moment, each Attorney General will briefly introduce themselves and share some opening comments. And then we're going to hear from you. We'll spend most of tonight inviting folks up to share testimony and questions for the AGs. We had a lot of people sign up to speak and submit questions, so we won't get through everyone, but we will get through as many as we can, and we will do our best. Then we'll wrap up with some concrete action steps that you can take, followed by closing remarks from the AGs. And I promise we will have you out of here as close to 8 as possible. I'm sure we could all stay here all night. With that, I will turn it over to our 3 Attorneys General for some opening remarks. And we'll start with Keith. Home turf, yeah.
Hey, everybody. And Karen, thank you for emceeing tonight. And to my colleagues, thank you, Kwame. Thank you, Dan. These 2 guys are awesome. And let me tell you, they are beloved in the states they come from. And they're beloved by me, and I hope by you, too. They are absolutely awesome. You all, some of you all have heard me say teamwork makes the dream work. And it stands true. Our team is actually bigger than this. We have folks on our team like Rob Bonta from California, Tish James from New York, and all in between, Phil Weiser from Colorado. I could go on and on and on, and they are great to work with because the fact that we all have a little bit different perspective on the world allows us to cover all the bases that need covering. And so if the issue is, for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion, Kwame is really an expert on that. He's been leading a lot of the great work we've done on that. There have been a number of executive orders attacking that, and Kwame has been making sure that we're standing up strong on that. If you're concerned about the tariffs, that President Trump says, I'm tariffs on everybody, and then, but he doesn't have the authority to do that. And the person who helped lead the band on that, who'll talk more about that, is Dan Rayfield. So we thank him for that. We won in the Supreme Court there. And I could go on about all the various issues and all the different AGs who lead at one time or another, but we do it together. Whether it's gender affirming care, whether it's agriculture policy, whether it's energy policy or supplemental nutrition assistance, we are teaming up together to stand up for the American people. And let me also say that when we were going through Operation Metro Surge, we took great advice from our colleagues. Before they were in Minnesota with Operation Metro Surge, they were in Illinois with Operation Midway Blitz. And they showed up there. Some of you may have heard about how they had a helicopter. Bovino led that one too. They rappelled down from a helicopter, came down and arrested everybody in the building. And most of the people were citizens, and the ones that weren't had a legal status ended up not really arresting anybody for immigration violations. And yet they did this paramilitary operation within an American city. And so that's part of the experience that we brought. Kwame brought those guys to court and got some rulings which actually helped us and positioned us well. And who can forget when the creative, amazing people of Oregon protested in frog outfits. And one of those marches that was like 31 below, remember one of those things that we did? My wife stole my frog hat, and she put it on, and she marched in that green frog hat. And I said, that hat looks kind of familiar. She said, yeah, I borrowed it from you permanently. So good on her. She has good taste. But that is what we have been doing together. Let me just tell you this. Right now, we have sued the Department of Homeland Security for the damage it has inflicted on Minnesota because of Metro Surge. We filed a new and improved complaint last night. One of the lawyers leading that effort is here tonight. Brian, do you mind me introducing you to everybody? Stand up over there, Brian. Brian Carter, everybody. I want to say that myself and County Attorney Mary Moriarty are continuing to investigate the cases involving Renee Good and Alex Preddy. The fact that you have not been hearing about those every day does not mean we have not been working on those cases every single day. We absolutely have been. We filed a lawsuit to make the Department of Homeland Security share the information that they have been keeping from us so that we can thoroughly investigate those cases. You know that the guy who led the prosecution of the person who killed George Floyd is not going to let it go. Y'all know that, right? And so so, you know, before you ever see, my friend Gary Wirtz is here. He's a farmer. He knows farm stuff. Before those plants bloom above the ground, they shoot roots down first, right? And so that's what we're doing with these cases, okay? We're getting our groundwork done, and then you're going to see the rest later. But I want you to know that we're working on it. Last thing I want to say before I turn the microphone over is that we're now probably 16, 17 months into this administration. And yes, it's true that we filed a lot of lawsuits. But I want us to remind everybody, we would be happier if we didn't have to file these lawsuits. There are plenty of antitrust violations, wage theft violations, consumer scams, environmental problems. That's what AG is supposed to do. But he has made us focus our attention because he's depriving the resources that the Congress has devoted to us. He's trying to take away people's rights like birthrights, citizenship, and so we have to file these lawsuits. We don't really have any other choice. I'd be afraid to see what would happen otherwise. We invite our Republican colleagues to join us. We're not excluding them. We don't see this as a partisan thing. But so far, only Dem AGs have stood up against the Trump administration. But it's been to the benefit of the whole country, quite frankly, because they got birthright citizens in their states. They got supplemental nutrition assistance in their states. They got tariffs going on in their states that they don't supposed to pay. And yet we're fighting for them also because they are ultimately our fellow Americans. And so we're glad to help. But let me say this as I sit down. We're not only fighting against the Trump administration, and the problem with the Trump administration is not that it's not just what they're doing. It's also what they're not doing, because I'm going to sit down here, but I just want to remind you that just last week, a New York jury, and the case was filed in New York, but all of us were on the case, and it involved Live Nation and Ticketmaster. And we got a jury to find that they had an illegal monopoly that was reusing its market power to dominate not just consumers, but venues, and they were driving up prices illegally, and we got that finding of monopoly, which is a big, big deal. Now, the Trump administration was in on the case too. But early on, earlier this year, they said we cut our own little deal with Live Nation, and we're out of this. Good luck. Which, quite frankly, friends, it's kind of like the biggest kid in the room says they're not going to play on our football team this Sunday, right? We're not playing. I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Because they're the big dog in the room. Well, you know what we did? We looked at each other and we said, you up for it? You up for it? And we said, we're up for it. And we carried on, and we did what a lot of people think could not be done, is we found this giant behemoth liable for being an illegal monopoly. And now that's what, and if we had a real Justice Department, they would never have bailed on us like that. So it's not just what they're doing, it's what they're also not doing that is a real problem, and I hope we talk about a little bit of that tonight. I'll stop talking right there, and which one of you guys wants to go next? There you go, Dan.
All right, is this thing on? You know, A.G. Rowe always does this to me. It makes me go before him. So that it's the way it always goes, and then he's funnier. So the first couple things. You need to know, when A.G. Ellison came to Oregon, I think Oregon clapped almost as loud as everybody here did for him. There was more whooping and hollering for A.G. Ellison in Oregon. So you just need to know you have an incredibly amazing, talented, and kind, good human being as an Attorney General. And people outside your state know it. And that's why when he asked me to come here, he came to Oregon, and I felt I really wanted to come to Minneapolis. I had never been here before. There's a tremendous amount of similarities between the two. We both take normal food and make it into weird things, right? So we have the voodoo donut, right? I'm told there's a Juicy Lucy? Is this a real thing? Okay. I've got to try one, so I had to be here, and it's also an incredibly important moment in the time of our country. As Attorneys General, for more than a year, we've been traveling this entire country, going to each other's states, engaging in conversation with Americans about what we want our country to look like, what we respectively can do in our own unique roles to turn America into what we know it can be. And we have a unique set of tools as Attorneys General that we're using in the country right now, but it also takes everybody in rooms like these, and it takes everybody in all of our communities to turn our country into what we know it can be. So I'm proud to be a part of an amazing team here. And one of the stories that I like to tell, and I'm going to jump in front of A.G. Raoul. This is his story, but I'm going to tell it for him, so he has nothing to say here in a quick second. This fight started before the president was inaugurated. And in the summer last year, you had Democratic AGs preparing and working day in and day out to be ready for what if. And then the what if came. And the reason you had to do that is Oregon alone couldn't fight this fight. Minnesota alone couldn't fight this fight. Illinois alone could not fight this fight. The collective resources of all of these Democratic AG's offices were going to be necessary if we were going to combat the things that the president was talking about on the campaign trail. And because you remember, it's not like he was hiding these things, right? And we divided the labor amongst all of the offices to be ready in that moment. And that's exactly what happened. What happened within less than 24 hours of his inauguration? The first lawsuit was filed. And what happened in less than 48 hours? We had our first positive ruling against birthright citizenship. And that case has now made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, just like tariffs. That's what this partnership means. It means when we have the National Guard and the president's trying to normalize the use of the National Guard, the military in the streets of our cities, I pick up the call and I can talk to A.J. Raoul. I can pick up the phone and I can talk to A.G. Ellison. I talk to A.G. Bonta to talk about what was the appropriate legal strategy, collectively getting heads together, but then what was the appropriate set of facts that we all collectively shared, but also what we didn't, what was different in our states, and how can we be more responsive in our collective states. That's the level of partnership that we have. Our staff, more importantly than us, we're mere figureheads on the hood ornament of a car, right? There's a monstrous machine behind us that works, and that's the staff and the attorneys in each of our offices. And they have amazing relationships. That is what you have working every single day behind all of us to defend our communities. So I am proud to be a part of this team, but I'm also proud to be a part of each collective team within each Department of Justice.
Dan stole my fire. I mean, I'm thankful for him for his leadership on terrorists, but I'm a little bit upset I did not get a frog hat. And I do have to say this about my friend Keith Ellison. I recently got a call from a bar association in Chicago. It's Cook County Bar Association, the oldest African American bar association in the country. And they said, well, we need a keynote speaker for our annual event. And I said, oh, well, yeah, sure. I have never. Oh, not you. We want Keith Ellison. I expect an invitation from a Minnesota Bar Association. It is good to be back in Minnesota. We are brethren. We are family. We've grown so close over the course of the last 2 years, because as Dan said, our work on this federal overreach started way before. Joe Biden was still the presumed candidate for Democrats in 2024 when we began this work. I want to be clear about something. I have not filed a single lawsuit because of a policy difference with President Trump. Now, I don't want you to misinterpret that. I do have policy differences with President Trump. But not a single lawsuit was filed because of policy difference. We expect to have policy differences. But we expect for leaders to carry out their desire to implement policy, to do so abiding by the Constitution. And that has not happened over and over and over again. And for me, this is a little bit personal. Our very first lawsuit, birthright citizenship, I am a birthright citizen. My parents were immigrants from Haiti. My mother was not yet naturalized at the time of my birth. So when we filed that first lawsuit, it was quite personal to me. About a month ago, I celebrated my 10th anniversary of being cured of the cancer that took my father and both of my grandfathers. I've been spoken a lot publicly about it. And as a result, I've given advice to other men. What I've noticed over the course of the last 10 years is some of my advice has grown stale. And that's a good thing, because it's grown stale because the advances in medical research that we fund. And so when we filed the NIH lawsuit for them trying to freeze indirect funds for indirect costs for research facilities, it was personal to me. Keith mentioned to me that the north side of Minnesota is just like the south side of Chicago, the side of town I grew up in. When those helicopters descended upon the south side of Chicago, zip tying people who had done nothing wrong, children even, that was personal to me. Now, I went for an appropriations hearing before my former colleagues. I served in the Illinois Senate for 14 years. And I got a question from a Republican senator asking, are the resources that you are spending to bring these lawsuits, are they worth it, given that you're probably going to lose most of them? First of all, there's this misinformation about our success rate. For cases taken all the way to a decision, we have won 93% of those cases. And I'm not sure what the stat is for the state of Oregon or state of Minnesota, but he asked me whether it was worth it for the citizens of Illinois. I said, well, at the time I said, we've protected over $7 billion of our money, because it's not federal money, it's taxpayer money. We've protected over $7 billion with the state of Illinois. That has become stale over the last 2 weeks because our figure now is $8.6 billion that we protected. When the president was going to deploy the National Guard of Illinois and of Texas into the streets of Chicago and surrounding suburbs, we took swift action, and we were in communication with both Oregon and California. I just have to share this one little portion of the judge's order, because I think it's so fascinating. If you ever could just pull it up and read it, you don't have to read the entire order because it's about 60 pages or so. But just the first 2 pages. She goes back to Federalist 29. The delegates were debating about how much power to give the federal government over the state's militias. And delegates were saying, well, there may be a situation where one day the militia of one state will be sent into another state. And Alexander Hamilton, he says, that's preposterous. That would never happen. That's impossible. Well, the impossible is happening to us today, and that's why we are here together, fighting together. And I'm glad you all are here, because it's not just a fight in the courtroom. It's important for the fight to be in the streets, in the communities, and we need to educate everybody. We need to take it back to Schoolhouse Rock and educate everybody on the fundamentals of the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, AGs. And I also want to thank, we have a couple of other elected representatives of our community here with us. We have City Council Member Pearl Warren is here.
Where is she?
And State Representative Cedric Frazier is with us tonight. So now we will begin the public comments and questions portion. So again, like I said, we had a ton of people sign up, and I wish we could get to everyone, but so we have selected some questions in advance. When you signed up online to speak, you indicated a topic that you wanted to cover: education, immigration, democracy. And the team took this list and then grouped it by topic and then randomly selected the order for public comment so that we can cover as much and hear from as many of you as we can. So here's the process. I'm going to call you up 3 or 4 at a time. When you hear your name called, please line up at the nearest microphone. I think our flight attendant, Matt, is going to indicate, is it just this one? Great. This is the nearest microphone. So line up there, and while you're walking up, I'm going to ask the AGs a question and give them a chance to respond. And then we'll hear from the folks at the microphones. When it's your turn to speak, please remember to give us your full name and your affiliation if you're here with an organization. And you'll have 2 minutes to give your remarks and or ask your question, and then we'll do our best to respond. And there will be somebody with a timer to help you keep time and keep us moving. And just as a reminder, though nobody needs to hear it, keep your comments respectful so that we can hear from as many people as we can tonight. So let's get started. The first section is going to be about immigration and operation.
Karen, I'm sorry, before you get going, would you all mind if I, without pointing my staff members out because they may not want to be pointed out, would you just join me in thanking them for being here to make this thing happen tonight? Thank you, guys. Really hard, and I just want them to know I appreciate them a lot. Brian doesn't mind me pointing him out, but there might be some that are a little funny about it, but I just want them to know that I appreciate them. All right? All right, good.
Thank you. So the first block is going to be immigration and Operation Metro Surge, and we're going to hear from Aaron Rosenthal, North Star Policy Action, Zena Stenvik, the Superintendent of Columbia Heights Public Schools, Miguel Hernandez, who's a business owner, and Jamie Martins, who was a Minnesotan assaulted by ICE officers. And the question for AGs as they assemble is, can federal officials and federal agents be held accountable for breaking state and local laws? If so, what's being done to bring them to account? And what are AGs specifically doing to hold ICE accountable for harm to businesses and local governments? All three of you answer in 3 minutes or less. Now, as they, yeah.
The answer is yes, they can. Now, they do enjoy a certain level of immunity, but that immunity is not absolute immunity. They enjoy immunity if they're reasonably carrying out the duty of their federal position as a law enforcement officer. And what we saw, certainly in Chicago and Minnesota and other in Portland, went beyond the reasonable. I don't want to create a picture that it's an easy thing, the tremendous job that Keith did holding accountable Derek Chauvin, holding law enforcement officers accountable for overreach is not an easy prosecution by any means, and certainly the threshold is a little bit higher with federal law enforcement officers than it is at the local level. That doesn't mean it cannot happen. What we've been doing thus far, similar to Keith with regards to a civil action that we've taken because of the tactics utilized by ICE officers, is we filed a lawsuit with regards to those tactics, with regards to the sensitive places where ICE went to. They went into our schools, they went to our courthouses, they went into all sorts of sensitive areas, and they utilized tactics that were not law enforcement tactics. And so we're trying to broadly enjoin any of those tactics from occurring. We allege that it's an attack on our sovereignty, that it's a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. I don't know the respective criminal prosecutorial authority of my colleagues here. It differs from state to state. I don't have immediate jurisdiction. Usually it's what we call the state's attorneys within our counties that have immediate criminal jurisdiction. There's certain things that we have statewide grand jury authority for. Those are usually things that occur across county boundaries, as well as certain enumerated types of crimes where I would have authority, or if there's a conflict for the local state's attorney, then we can step in. But in addition to that, Governor Pritzker has set up a commission for us to take in evidence from the public at large, and so we can utilize that in our proceeding.
Very quickly, yes, states can hold federal agents accountable for breaking the criminal laws of states. In fact, we are doing an investigation on that activity right now. You all may have seen Hennepin County actually charged some ICE agents for second-degree assault for a road rage incident for waving guns at some people who were driving down the street. So they don't have the immunity if they cannot prove that they were on the job, doing the job at the time. Now, even if they were on the job, they got to prove that they were doing something that was necessary and proper in the course of their duty. And I'll leave you to ask yourself whether shooting Alex Preddy 10 times after disarming him was necessary and proper. I'll leave you to decide whether shooting Renee Good in her head as she drove away from him was necessary and proper. I'll leave you to decide whether shooting Julio Sosa Solis in the back of his body as he was running away into his home was necessary and proper, all these things will be decided. I'll simply say that right now in Minnesota, the county attorneys have jurisdiction for these cases, but often the attorney general and the county will agree to work together. They can give us the case, or we can do it jointly. That's what we're doing now, and I think actually County Attorney Mary Moriarty deserves a lot of credit for the good work that her office is doing, and we're doing it together, and I want y'all to know about that.
And we're way over 3 minutes, but we were way over 3 minutes on our introductions too. So I'm just going to keep going. We're off the rails. Why not, right? But I thought what I wanted to add. You heard the civil context, right? Which we're trying to have a court order to prevent ICE from using certain tactics. We're doing that in Oregon as well. You have the criminal context. Because that's really important in this world where you have a federal government that's misstating our immunity laws. And they're doing it intentionally.
Right.
They're doing it in a way that creates a culture that we need to stop, because that is impacting communities and holding folks accountable, making sure that we're accurately stating the law, and when they step over the line, having accountability. And again, probably in all of our jurisdictions, it sounds like that is a partnership with local law enforcement, the local DOJ, in the courtroom. And then there's other things that are going on in the ICE world that I kind of talk about in our state, where it's our sanctuary state laws, right? Each of us are respectively defending those laws. Each of us, as the federal government, tries to put terms and conditions of compliance with those laws. We are advising our agencies, instructing to or not to do things. A lot of these have resulted in lawsuits. You would think about funding for victims grants. VOCA funding was withheld to say, hey, you got to comply with the federal government's rules. Transportation dollars, money that has nothing to do with these objectives. They're trying to hold states accountable in this way and try and twist our arms into violating our own state laws and the policy decisions that we've respectively made as states. So there's a lot of really nuanced ways that we're working together. These are just a handful of them. Sorry.
Gentlemen, I want you to turn those mics off. We're going to hear from Aaron Rosenthal.
Go, Aaron.
Thank you. I'm Aaron Rosenthal. I'm the research director for North Star Policy Action. We are a think tank dedicated to improving the lives of working Minnesotans. Since January, our organization has been focused on documenting the economic cost of Operation Metro Surge. The conclusion of our analysis has been clear. The economic harm has been profound. Our most recent analysis found that Operation Metro Surge was deeply implicated in Minnesota's rising unemployment rate in January of 2026, which rose above the national average for the first time in nearly 2 decades. We found that job losses were highest in sectors targeted by DHS harassment, like restaurants. In the first 2 months of 2026 alone, accommodation and food services lost 4,400 jobs in the state. That's the industry's largest non-pandemic drop on record. But unemployment tells only part of the story. Many workers didn't lose their jobs. They kept them, but were too afraid to show up. That fear shows up in a striking number. On average, Minnesotans worked 32.1 hours in January of 2026. That is the lowest number on record. I think that's worth repeating. Minnesotans spent fewer hours at work in January of 2026 than any month since at least 2007, including the pandemic. When people don't go to work, they don't get paid. We estimate that reduced hours among Twin Cities workers led to $106 million in lost wages. And that $106 million is a floor, not a ceiling. It excludes lost wages in greater Minnesota, lost business revenue, the estimated $18 million that taxpayers spent each week to fund Operation Metro Surge, and costs that we may not fully understand for years, including the impact on children's schooling and their lifetime earnings. Most of the human cost cannot be undone. The fear, the trauma, the disruption to families and communities cannot be reimbursed. But the economic damage can be addressed. That's why we've called on the state legislature to provide relief that matches the scale of the harm done. But of course, in normal times, an economic crisis like this would also bring federal help, as it did during the pandemic. These, unfortunately, are not normal times. The federal government is why we're here and why this work is so important. So we will continue to document the damage from Operation Metro Surge and put the evidence of it in the hands of people like Attorney General Ellison to make sure that the Trump administration answers for what they've done to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Good job, man.
Good evening. My name is Zena Stenvik. I serve as the superintendent of Columbia Heights Public Schools. This testimony reflects my firsthand experience with the presence of ICE and its impact on my school community. In October of 2025, ICE activity began to ramp up in our area. On January 6th, our first student was taken and detained with her mother while they were on their way to school. By that afternoon, they had been whisked away to a detention center in Texas. This was the first of 7 of our students who were detained, including 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos. None of the families I worked with enter this country unlawfully, no. They were permitted to be here by the United States government. As I personally saw their legal documentation, it became clear to me that these were not operations targeted towards violent criminals. Their actions consisted of racially profiling Black and brown people who happened to drive by where ICE was staged. It became a daily occurrence to see multiple ICE vehicles driving in front of and behind our schools, especially during arrival and dismissal times. There were times we had to pull kids inside from the playground or delay dismissal because of heavy ICE presence in and around our school grounds. ICE vehicles came onto our school property multiple times. Because many families were too afraid to leave their homes, neighbors transported children to and from schools, teachers walked groups of students home as ICE vehicles circled them. Our PTOs, community members, local food shelves, and churches mobilized to provide safe transportation, food deliveries, rent assistance, and essential resources for families. Many 16 and 17-year-olds were pulled over by ICE while driving to school by armed men in fatigues with their faces covered. It looked like a war zone in our peaceful community. No child and no student of mine should ever be surrounded by a group of masked, armed agents on their way to or from school. Or separated from their family or detained without cause and without due process. We are observing clear and concerning signs of trauma among our students. While children are resilient, and I am cautious not to generalize trauma, the patterns we are seeing are consistent and significant. We're seeing increased separation anxiety, heightened difficulty with transitions, and increased stress response behaviors among students who have experienced both direct and indirect trauma. Students are more fearful of strangers and unfamiliar vehicles, particularly SUVs or people in uniforms. Children are expressing deep concerns about housing instability, food insecurity, and financial hardship. Many have experienced abrupt moves, leaving behind belongings and facing uncertainty about their futures. These experiences are contributing to a profound sense of instability and insecurity. We are still organized. We are still vigilant, and we will continue to stand against the inhumane treatment of children and families. Operation Metro Surge will have lasting and deeply harmful impacts on our students, families, and broader school community for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you for having me back, Keith. Mr. Ellison. My name is Miguel Hernandez. I'm the owner of Lito's Burritos. Thank you. I didn't really write a speech or anything because I think the testimony that we're having is still ongoing. But I can try. I opened Lito's Burritos in Uptown in November. But even before that, I was weighing out going to take people to the Whipple building for their court hearings. And we'd had to prepare, and we had to be impartial because we weren't lawyers. We were just there just in case they were taken. These are people who believed in the American dream, asylum cases. And of the 4 people I took, only one of them made it back. Just being there, trying to get people's phone numbers as they're being taken, put me in a point where I wasn't allowed back at the Whipple building. At the same time, I juggled opening this restaurant, building it with my father. And as time went on, I saw the pressure cooker. June 3rd happened on Lake Street. I would go to these things as part of activists. I would go to these places to altercations, respond to ICE early in the summer, and I saw this escalation coming. So by the time we opened in November, I knew I had to do something. I knew something was coming much worse than we've seen. And I asked every employee I hired, I'm going to be vocal about what's happening. We will have retaliation. They will come for anyone around me. I had to ask my parents that, who also owned a restaurant. And I started taking on interviews. The more I saw, the more rapid responding I would do. And it happened. ICE tapped on my parents' windows for a week straight after the first interview would air. Every time I'd speak up, we would see people come and drive by Uptown. As soon as we started doing Horchata Abolish ICE, a fund that would give immigrants money for diapers and things like that, and along with Rectangle Pizza and Smith & Kitten, we saw ICE come and retaliate and just drive around our neighborhoods for no other reason, tear gas our blocks, and it was just escalating. I was there when Renee Good was 10 minutes after Renee Good was killed, after Alex Peretti, after the gentleman in Northside, because it felt insane to continue making burritos and tacos when people were losing their lives on the streets, when our neighbors were being ripped apart from their families. I would close when these things would happen out of respect for my staff's safety. I would close when it was just too hard for my staff to come in. And all of that is like, we spoke in, I think in January or February, Mr. Ellison. Yeah. I'm glad you invited me back, because the process of healing and taking in that trauma from a community 2 months later has just begun. Yeah. We are barely seeing it. But with that, I'm extremely proud of Minnesota to show up and show America who we are. And with that, we've raised the bar, what it is to be a citizen of America. We have raised the bar for everybody. We have raised the bar for your work to respond to, for every person in Congress, for every House rep. Everybody should step up to this level, because we have raised the bar, and I'm so happy that you guys are doing that too, and doing what you can and do your part, just like everybody else should.
Thank you, Miguel.
Hi, I'm Jamie Martins. I've tried to keep my identity hidden for several months now, and those in my community have done a wonderful job of protecting me. So hello to each of you. Thank you for holding this space for us, for our communities to get our stories out there and to feel heard. So I'm a resident of a wonderful community, St. Peter in southern Minnesota. It's been a peaceful community, a supportive community. We love our immigrant neighbors. For many of our residents in St. Peter, the community became much smaller come about December of last year. Many were confined to their homes for months. Those residents learned to be suspicious of law enforcement, a relationship that our police station has tried to build for years that was wiped away in a matter of weeks. They were suspicious of their neighbors. Who are we? Why are we there? Can they trust us? During that time, many of our community members stepped up and stepped in to help protect our neighbors. That was just what I was doing on January 29th of this year. I was observing ICE agents as they were targeting and terrorizing our immigrant neighbors. I'm sorry, and I have a cold, so it's not helpful. They'd been doing this for weeks. They were following the school buses leaving the elementary schools and middle schools, using our children to draw out our immigrant neighbors from their homes. I was helping to ensure those children made it into their homes unharmed. On this day, as I was heading to a frequently targeted community to ensure those children got off the buses after school, I found myself surrounded on all sides by ICE agent vehicles while I was driving down a residential street. I was able to maneuver away from the agents and onto a side street. That side street was very secluded. It's very quiet. Nobody was around. I became very fearful. I also made that last second decision to move away from that street because it was just a couple blocks from our elementary school, and they were getting out of school. There would be kids walking on the sidewalks with these ICE agents driving erratically all around me. There was even a UPS truck that got ran off the road on a residential street. I became fearful because I was isolated. So I drove as quickly as I could to the nearest busier street, and thank God I made it to that street. There were many of our community members just leaving work from the state hospital, which was right up there. They were able to be there and see what was happening. I was scared because of the ICE agents have been operating without impunity. Nobody is stopping them from what they are doing. Well, I did make it to that street. As soon as I turned onto it, an ICE agent maneuvered around me and slammed out his brakes in front of me. There were 3 agents that jumped out of that vehicle with guns drawn, pointing straight at my head, as well as another agent that jumped out of a vehicle beside me and was right beside my driver's side window with a gun pointed to my head. I was terrified. They were able to pull me out of my vehicle and tackled me to the ground. I had ICE agents, 3 to 4 of them, I'm not sure, with their knees pressed into my back, onto my legs, all over me, to hold me down. I was not aggressive. I just refused to leave my vehicles because I was afraid of what they were doing with guns drawn on me. My husband happened to show up right at that time. Thank God he was here. He was there because I don't know what would have happened as he was questioning every single thing they were doing to me. I had told the agents they were hurting me. I had just had surgery on my hip right before this. They handcuffed me, patted me down, all males there, and patted over my breast area. They didn't care. I was terrified. They threw me into the back of a vehicle. My husband asked them, "Where are you taking her?" They refused to respond. They wouldn't respond when I asked them where I was being taken. They just headed towards the cities. I was with a group of large men taking me somewhere I had no idea where I was going, and I had already heard stories of what could happen. About 30 minutes into the trip on Highway 169, they took an exit, a secluded exit. I was extremely fearful because they didn't make any announcement about what they were doing or where we were going. Thank God they brought me back to St. Peter, but they did so with a warning. That warning wasn't just in their words. It was their actions that they had shown to this community already, a small, peaceful community. And they let me know that I better not show up again. That really put me in a difficult place because I wanted to continue supporting my neighbors. I wanted to be there for them. I wanted to be there for the children. But it was made clear that my presence would be a risk to those neighbors. And I could no longer do this. I just have one last thing to say. They've shown us over and over again that they would show no restraint. They're operating with an open-ended license to murder, to assault, and to trample on the rights of all of us. Terrified is an understatement. My God. I still have fear. Am I on a list? I'm thinking I probably am. How will this affect me? How does this affect my children, my family? But I'm more fearful for our nation. If this administration continues to operate unchecked, That's a fear that hurts more than any physical injury. It's an injury that cripples our nation. And I really hope that all of you and all of our states can come together and stop this before it gets any worse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all the speakers in our first block. We're going to move to our second block, which is about the harm caused to rural communities. We're going to hear from Gary Wordish, Nicole Helget, Paul Sobocinski, and Josh Vanderpool. We'll actually go right into Gary.
All right. First of all, I want to thank Attorney General Ellison and the other Attorney Generals for being here tonight holding this town hall. I'm Gary Wordish. I'm president of Minnesota Farmers Union. We rent our farm to one of our sons now in western Minnesota. During the president's first term, before he put tariffs on China, the United States was the #1 supplier of soybeans to China. We are not anymore. Brazil is now the #1 supplier of soybeans to China. The United States is now considered a residual supplier of beans to China. China is the world's #1 buyer of soybeans, accounting for more than 60% of global imports, which is more than the rest of the world combined. The U.S. farmers spent decades and a lot of their own checkoff dollars securing and building up the China market. And just like that, the farmers' investment and money is, as could be said, flushed down a toilet because of the president's love of tariffs. Since then, China is investing into a lot of infrastructure in Brazil. The Brazilian farmers are bringing more acres into soybean production, which will not go away. If some of that land is coming out of the Amazon rainforest, that is problematic for the world's climate. We will never get that market completely back, and you can't replace the loss of China's huge market of soybeans with other countries. We are fortunate in Minnesota and the United States in agriculture that we can produce more than we can consume domestically. Exports are needed and are a viable market for our farmers and ranchers. Tariffs, if targeted, can be useful, but the president's use of tariffs now to pretty much against the whole world is destroying the United States' trust as a reliable trading partner. The recent signed framework of a trade agreement with China has them committing to buying less soybeans than they had bought in the previous 2 years, 2023 and 2024. So who is the winner on that deal? When the farmers lost that market to China, as they didn't purchase any U.S. soybeans for almost the whole year of 2025. During the president's first term, the administration sent out around $28 billion to farmers in market facilitation payments, and just recently another $12 billion in bridge payments to help due to the trade disruption. The trade disruption was all self-inflicted by the president's trade policies, and in no way covered the losses to farmers. Farmers want their payments from the markets. These payments are, even though they are needed, they are hard to justify to the U.S. taxpayer. The president's recent war in Iran will have a long-lasting effect on the global and the U.S. economy. This will hit farmers hard, as approximately 25% of the global oil and 30% of fertilizer moves through the Strait of Hormuz, and the prices have dramatically increased. Pretty much all freight is shipped through using diesel fuel or gasoline. We are already seeing fuel surcharges added to the cost of goods. The farmer cannot add a fuel surcharge to his commodities. You know, farmers are used to dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and primarily the weather is an uncertainty, but, you know, we're not used to dealing with the type of uncertainty we're seeing coming out of D.C. right now. And, you know, the president is betting the farm on trade, but he's not betting his farm. We keep hearing they are unleashing the golden age of agriculture. I must wonder who and what type of agriculture will be left.
and thank you for hosting this and allowing people to give their testimony. As most of us in the room know, authoritarians always rewrite history, and so collecting these stories and curating them and keeping them for the future is among the most important things that we can do in this time. My name is Nicole Helget. I represent a rural Minnesota community in southern Minnesota. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Guatemalan and Latino dairy workers from our community. For months, the more than 56 families of the Marway Trailer Park in southern Minnesota were afraid to send their children to school. They were afraid to go to work. Masked agents waited, watched, and followed them. Children began and ended their school days in fear. ICE agents stalked and mocked that small neighborhood, a place with only one school bus stop and one road in and out of it. On one occasion, 9 vehicles arrived, agents masked, heavily armed, spreading throughout the park, knocking on doors, shouting at children to open them, without warrants and without explanation. Many of the children on the other side of the door were translating to their parents what the ICE agents were saying, because most of the adults only speak an indigenous language called Quiche. In total, 4 dairy workers were taken from that one park. Not one of those men has a criminal record. From that neighborhood alone, 5 children and 1 yet to be born have lost their fathers to deportation or detention. This week, I'm a teacher, like many of the volunteers who picked up the slack and created the mutual aid and ran people to and from work in safe rides. Go teachers. This week, I taught in a classroom for one of those children, 5-year-old Macarena. On the wall is a photo of her and her father all dressed up and smiling and proud on Macarena's first day of school. Today, he sits in a Texas detention center. He has lived in this country for almost 20 years. He has worked in our dairy industry nearly that entire time. He is a husband, a father of 3, with a 4th child due in just a couple of weeks, and he will not be there. This is the human cost. These actions have been tearing families apart, destabling households, and leaving children without their fathers. Entire communities are withdrawing. They are avoiding medical care and avoiding public life because they're scared. This is not only an immigration issue, it's a public safety issue, it's an economic issue, and a civil rights issue. We are a donor state of our taxes, of our consumer goods, of our farming commodities, of our educated workers, and of our social justice values. I implore you to get justice for the people of Marway, of Minnesota, and all of America.
Well, thank you for doing and having this forum here today. Really appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. My name is Paul Sobosinski, been a longtime farmer from Obasso, Minnesota, in transition right now. I work with a project called the Minnesota Farmers Union Solving the Local Meat Processing Project, addressing the issues of small processors, looking at how to keep those out here because they're important to farmers. I want to share with you the testimony of one of the processors who gave testimony to a committee chaired, of the Ways and Means Committee chaired by Representative Fraser, and share her story. She said, and her name is Georgia Galago of Kirkhoven Country Butcher, and her husband's name is Thomas. They own a small butcher shop in Kirkhoven, Minnesota, near Wilmer. They are both legal immigrants, came to this country. She came to this country from Venezuela 35 years ago. Her husband Thomas came from Cuba 31 years ago. They started Kirkhoven Country Butcher in 2019, got their first license in custom butchery in 2020, and then added Equal 2. which allows them to produce meat and then sell it locally. They specialize in goats, sheep, and beef. They sell to in the community of Willmar, Minnesota, and also in the St. Cloud area. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture, MDA, helped them with a small meat processing grant, and the inspection division of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture guided them in starting their business. Their meat, like I said, is sold locally, and because of ICE, they saw a reduction in sales to their main retail outlets of like $6,500. They also saw a reduction in traffic from people, the immigrant community, coming to their farm to purchase animals of about $5,300. They said their customers were afraid to come out, and it had a significant effect on their business. They're just barely hanging on. They closed their testimony by saying this, which I think is profound. Chair Fraser, Chair Torkelson, chairs of the Ways and Means Committee of the Minnesota House. We love this country. Our ability to start this small business would only be a dream in the countries we came from. We urge this committee to provide relief to our businesses and other businesses affected by ICE. This is just one processor stories. There are others, like there's a new Happy Halal plant just started in Willmar, Minnesota. Businesses, why is this important? These businesses affect farmers, affect the rural community. We're in this all together. Thank you for the opportunity to share this story.
Thank you, Paul.
My name is Josh Vanderpool, and together with my wife Cindy and our family, we operate Pastures of Plenty Farm in Kirkhoven, Minnesota. I'm also an active member in Minnesota Farmers Union, along with being part of the leadership there. To start, I want to say I'm grateful to everyone for standing up to testify here, and I want to acknowledge the damage that the ICE surge has done to Minnesota families, our local businesses, and our communities. So proud of all the Minnesota citizens who've stood up and done what they could to help out. Our farm has been bringing our extra eggs and meat to a church in Minneapolis that's been distributing to immigrant families during this, and I got the opportunity to do that again this Monday. A lot of this has occurred in the metro area, but it's also occurring in the rural areas, and we saw it in Willmar by us. We raise livestock, and a large portion of the people that do the hard, necessary work of processing livestock in our state are immigrants. And when they don't feel safe coming to work, it affects all of us. We're all connected by the food system, whether we're producers or consumers. With that, I want to talk to you about something that happened prior to the start of this year, and that's the cancellation of the federal grants for farm-to-school programming. On our farm, we have 4 generations now that are raising livestock and supplying our community with sustainable grass-fed beef, pork, chicken, and eggs. We started in the late 90s. Since we started in the late 90s until today, with the consolidation in agriculture, finding good, reliable markets has been a challenge. And for us, the power of the farm-to-school program has helped with that. It's a contract we can rely on to lock in our costs, plan our production, and ensure that we can cash flow. That's why we were so disappointed when the federal government canceled more than $18 million in funding they allocated for Minnesota farm-to-school and early child care programming. We thought a contract with the federal government was one we could count on, and we made changes to our business. We worked hard to put together bids to supply our area schools with quality local foods. We even confirmed capacity with local meat processors and hatcheries to ensure they were ready to partner with us as well. This funding was going to make a big impact on our farm and with other local businesses as well. Beyond that, it just feels like a big missed opportunity. It gives a lot of pride that our products go to feed hungry kids, and we know they appreciate it too. we've heard stories of we were sending eggs to a school about an hour from us, and we couldn't get the delivery made because of weather, and the kids were very disappointed in that. So just like to finish by saying it isn't just farm to school. They pulled the funding in local food purchase assistance program, regional food business centers, all programs that have helped small farms like ours. I want to thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, everyone. Our third block, we're going to hear from some folks in Health and Human Services. So I want to call up Dr. Katie Miller, Dr. Kelsey Leonard-Smith, and Matteo Halbesleben. Was that close?
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. My name is Dr. Katie Miller. I'm a pediatrician. Oh, closer? Thank you. All right, my name is Dr. Katie Miller. I am a pediatrician who lives and practices here in Minneapolis. And I could speak for much more than 3 minutes, but I'll stick to my 4 quick topics. The first is Operation Metro Surge. As a pediatrician, I have unfortunately seen very firsthand how this has affected our children and families. Just yesterday, we learned that over 70 children have been detained by Operation Metro Surge. Over 70 children. That was in the news media this week. Over 3,700 people have been detained since Operation Metro Surge began just in Minnesota, and that is, as we've heard, thousands of families that have been torn apart. And every one of those families is experiencing traumatic stress. We are seeing regressions in milestone. We are seeing children with severe anxiety and depression. We are seeing adolescent patients who are taking on caregiving responsibilities for their younger siblings because one or both parents have been detained or deported. These are adolescent patients who had dreams and career aspirations of their own, who are giving them up to care for their younger siblings. Families are facing severe economic uncertainty. I've had families who have lost their housing, who are hungry, who don't have enough money for food or rent. Just this week, I had a college student tell me that she took out a high-interest loan to buy food. I've had patients who didn't leave their homes for months to weeks during Operation Metro Surge. These were patients whose blinds were shut. They didn't see sunlight for up to 4 months. I've had patients who are immigrants who did this, but I've also had US citizens who were born in this country who did so because they were afraid they would be targeted for the color of their skin or their race. And I can't say that they were wrong. I've had multiple college students who have reported they had such severe anxiety and depression that they've dropped out of school entirely, losing all the tuition they've paid up till now. The second topic is vaccine hesitancy. So as a pediatrician, I care very deeply about vaccines. We are generally very pro-vaccines, despite the fact that we don't actually get kickbacks. I don't know if you knew that, but it's the opposite. But we are seeing so much vaccine hesitancy as a direct result of the misinformation being spouted by the Health and Human Services Secretary. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. This year alone, and it is only April, the United States has seen over 1,700 cases of measles. Unheard of in the United States. We are going to lose our status as a place that doesn't have endemic measles. Measles, if you don't know, it has a case fatality rate in a developed setting of 1 in 1,000. In an undeveloped or a resource-poor setting, that rate is much higher, 30 to 40 per 1,000 cases. And if you've never seen a child die of measles, I envy that. And we're going to start seeing that again soon. We haven't had a death here in Minnesota yet from measles, but it's inevitable and it is coming. Finally, I want to speak to brain drain. Some of the smartest people I know are actively leaving the state. People who research cancer, maternal mortality, physical activity, they're looking for jobs in Canada, in Spain. They are moving. And as my last point, I am a provider of pediatric gender-affirming care. Many of us have been very personally targeted by the HHS secretary. We've seen clinics close. We've seen funding canceled. I've sat with parents and patients in the exam room as they cry because their federal health insurance will not cover their care anymore. So I cannot overstate the harms that federal overreach have caused in our state, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of these on behalf of my patients, and thank you for everything you've done to fight this.
Thank you so much. My name is Kelsey Leonard Smith, and I am a family medicine physician. I work on the east side of St. Paul. And since last year, I've seen firsthand the damaging effects of this federal overreach. Funding cuts and even just the threat of funding cuts, food assistance programs, housing, childcare, and Medicaid, they're wreaking havoc on the families I take care of and on well-being, parents leaving the workforce, parents to stretch formula, parents choosing between medicines like insulin, or whether or not we should get this surgery, or should I get that test, and paying their rent. A few months back, one of my longtime patients and I were kind of talking through this new medicine that I think would be very helpful for her. And she said, you know what, doc, I don't want to do it because I don't want to know what it's like to feel better, and then if they take away my Medicaid and I can't get it anymore. Like, that's not worth it to me. And I don't know how to make promises about that. The lies and disinformation from the highest levels of government, and especially our Secretary of Health and Human Services, are really directly hurting our patients. Like Dr. Miller, one of the most rewarding parts of my career the last decade has been caring for transgender youth. And their life-saving, evidence-based care has been under direct attack by the Secretary and by the government. Young people drive hours to seek care or fall into crisis, losing access. And it's been devastating. But it goes beyond that. I'm seeing, new moms feeling afraid to give vitamin K shots to their babies because they've heard that vaccines are bad. And this is everybody in this country gets this shot to prevent catastrophic brain bleeding. My pregnant patients are suffering through severe hip pain, low back pain. They're afraid to take Tylenol. People who've had their flu shots every year are feeling uncertain, and we know this keeps you safe, it protects you, and with newer evidence that it is going to reduce your dementia risk. Like, we want you to get this, right? I'm 41 years old, and this year I saw chickenpox for the first time since I scratched my own chickenpox when I was 4. But honestly, I would rather have families come in confused and concerned and asking me questions than not come in at all. And that is really what we've seen through the devastating months of Metro Surge, and it's really not completely gone away, right? My patients suffered through kidney stones and pregnancy complications at home while we were scrambling to figure out how to meet their needs. And even though this overzealous immigration enforcement has kind of slowed to a simmer, the fears really linger. ICE is in my neighborhood every week still, right? And our overtaxed community clinics are really being tasked now to provide this healing from trauma. And we're already really stretched thin. I don't have a pill to fix the nightmares that have been keeping you up every night since you were held by ICE for 2 days illegally. I'm someone who's not an immigrant, but I'm a neighbor and a doctor, and I'm a mom. Watching firsthand this fear on these kids' faces, on my kids' friends' faces, on my neighbors' faces, that it's like the stuff that I grew up reading about in books, and none of these kids were ever supposed to see that. So thank you to the Attorneys General and to Attorney General Ellison for continuing to stand between my patients and my community and the people of Minnesota and the violence of our federal government. I think our grandchildren will remember this service, and I appreciate that.
Hey, salutations. My name is Mateo, and it's pronounced Helbesleben, but it's a hard one. I've lived my whole life with it, so don't worry if it's off. Oh, okay. Oh, I'll be louder. That's not a problem. It's usually the opposite problem. But as I said, my name is Mateo. I'm a longtime resident of Minneapolis, Minnesota, going on nearly 30 years now. While I have a myriad of things I would love to say today, I will attempt to keep things as concise as possible in the short time I have, because between the subject matter and being Midwestern, I could go on for hours and hours. I'm here today as someone who currently relies on both SNAP, EBT, and Medicaid. These programs aren't optional for me, they're essential. They are what allow me to eat and what allow me access to the care I need to keep functioning. With ongoing health issues, I haven't been able to work in a way that fully supports me. And over the past few years, my medical care, surgeries, physical therapy, and more has exceeded $300,000. That care didn't just help me, it kept me going, and it kept me here. By here, I mean living on this planet, not Minneapolis. But at the same time, I've experienced what happens when access to something as basic as food feels uncertain. The anxiety that comes with not knowing if benefits will be there when you need them is hard to explain unless you've lived it. It's not abstract, it's immediate, it's physical, and it's human. So when these programs are threatened, disrupted, and destabilized, it's not just a policy conversation. It's about people. It's about whether someone can eat that week, whether they can go to a doctor, and whether they can continue living their life with some level of stability. And living here in Minneapolis, I've seen what federal overreach can look like, not just on paper, but on the ground. I, like almost everyone in this room, experienced Operation Metro Surge. I've seen how decisions made from far away can land hard on our local city, its people, and its economy. But I've also seen something else. I've seen community, I've seen resilience, I've seen people show up for each other in ways that make me proud, truly proud to say where I live. There have been many times in my life I have questioned whether or not I could say I was proud to be an American, no matter how many times I heard that silly song. However, with what the world saw and recognized happening here in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, and Minnesota all together, I do not and will not ever question saying I'm proud to be Minnesotan residing in the Twin Cities. Thank you. And I know I'm not alone. There are so many people here quietly navigating these same systems, these same fears, these same stakes. And here in Minneapolis, we've seen how federal actions don't just affect individuals, they can hit entire communities at once. Sorry, I'll make this last part real fast. We experienced that at a time when our local economy was already in a slower season, when businesses, workers, and residents were more vulnerable to disruption. And the impact was not accidental, it was intentional. And it was felt across the metro in our state, which was observed by people across the world. When federal actions land with a level of force on a community, it goes beyond policy. It becomes harm that people have to live through. That's what overreach looks like on the ground, not just policy, but pressure, not just enforcement, but instability. So my ask is this: be vigilant, hold the line, and continue to hold federal actions accountable when they cross from governance into harm, because at the end of the day, this is about people. Yeah, I could say more. That's good.
Thanks, Mateo.
Right, thank you. So we're gonna roll right into our next block of speakers, and I'm gonna call up Bernie Burnham, Judy Zonbrecker, Kathleen Matzenbecker, and Andrew Lee.
Bernie.
Hey, good evening, and thank you so much for having this evening. I am Bernie Burnham, as you heard, president of the Minnesota AFL-CIO. We represent about 1,000 local unions. Thank you. Throughout the state, representing about 300,000 working people and our communities as a whole. I'm just going to share a few quick stories about what's happened with union members. So obviously, Superintendent Stenbeck talked about this, but we have teachers and paraprofessionals who are just at school, are out on the grounds in the morning and after school trying to protect their students as they're going home or coming to school, and they have been detained and taken away and often harmed and injured. We have they also are buying and collecting food and supplies to get to their families who are too afraid to come to school. M&A nurses who are in the emergency rooms taking care of people who have been arrested and injured while the ICE agents are waiting right outside the door to take them away. We've got laborers, painters, Liuna, roofers, electricians, and they talk about the fact that agents show up on their lines at work to take someone specific, and then when they don't find that person, they just step down the line and find the next person of color. It's about racism. AFGE, Alex Preddy, our union brother who was killed trying to protect someone. Our TSA workers who are often working without pay these days because our government can't get their act together. We've got SEIU and Unite Here members who are at MSP, the airport, they badge in and they disappear. They don't know where they go. We've got grocery store workers who aren't going to work either, for all the same reasons, because oftentimes they're immigrants and people of color and women. We've got Unite Here, who is gathering food for their members, upwards of 200 people right now, because those folks, these are people that work in hospitality, they're afraid to go to work. You know, and we've trained out of our shop, Todd Dahlstrom, I'll say, our organizing director, who's an amazing individual. If you haven't met him, you will. He's trained about 400 union peacekeepers to be in all of these lines and marches we've been on. And Keith talked about depriving states of resources. Up in St. Louis County, the Department of Transportation has approved millions of dollars for the county to use on roads and bridges on the projects that have been promised, but it comes with a catch. The county must drop its project labor agreement requirements for bidding. This is simply about union busting, period. That's what it is. So I'll say this, in Minnesota right now, and I know you're all with me, we say we take care of us. That's what we will do. And I'm proud to be a Minnesotan, and I can tell you all over this country, people are looking to us. I've been with my brother in Oregon and my brothers in Chicago, and they are looking to us. I was just in Washington this past week, and they are looking to us. So be proud of what you're doing. I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of all of us. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Bernie.
These are all tough acts to follow. Hello, I'm Judy Zombrecker, and I'm Voter Service Chair for the League of Women Voters of Minnesota, and I'm incoming president for the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. Thank you. Okay, all right, here we go. And I'm sure all of you know the League of Women Voters is a 106-year-old organization founded by the women who fought for and won the right to vote for women. So we are really fortunate in Minnesota in that we have one of the strongest voting traditions in the country. We battle it out with Wisconsin, we take it personally, and that's because we have strong state laws and we have a very engaged population who wants to be involved in voting. Election protection is really making sure that every eligible voter can cast a ballot, has it counted, can trust the process, and be free from fear, intimidation, and unnecessary barriers while voting. The good news is that Minnesota makes it easy for voters to cast a ballot. It has strong protections for voters to exercise their right freely, and an election system that ensures our elections are accurate and secure. However, this year we are facing more threats to our elections than at any time before, and it's coming from the federal government. At the League, we are hearing questions from voters who are confused about rules surrounding registration requirements, misinformation about how elections work, and too much debate over whether they are safe and secure. I and our volunteers have been asked more than once, do you even think we're going to have an election this year? And we hear a lot of concerns about people saying, is ICE going to show up at our polling places? And if so, what do we do about that? That is the confusion and fear. That is exactly why election protection matters. So we're not standing around and not doing anything. We know that election protection started a long time ago. It's no longer just one moment in time, but it's ongoing work that we all must engage in to protect our democracy. At the League of Women Voters, our goal is prevention, and we do that through providing accurate information, advocating to eliminate barriers, and encouraging civic engagement. When voters are informed and supported, they can engage in the process with confidence, and democracy works better for everyone. So, for all of us in the audience, we are a civically engaged group, and that's what we need to continue to do. If we care about strong elections, the rule of law, and protecting our democracy, there's a role for every single member of our community. It's volunteering. It's sharing trusted information with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, anybody that you can. It's becoming an election judge so that we can continue to have our elections run by the citizens of this country. And it's simply helping someone make a plan to vote. Go with them to the polls, make them feel comfortable. We as a league are here to help, and we can help you get plugged in if you're interested in learning more.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. Attorney General Rami Kual, I wanted to say welcome, especially. I was born on the south side of Chicago, and my first job was with the Illinois State Senate Democrats. I'm the younger sister of Margaret Houlihan, and my name is Kathleen Motzenbecker. How did a good Chicagoan like me wind up here?
Lucky.
Well, yeah. If you meet a Minnesotan, if you date a Minnesotan, they're going to get you up here and you have a great married life, and it's been wonderful for me for the last 15 years. When I moved here, I needed to recreate myself. I was a global person, and I was lucky to work for Governor Dayton. And Keith Ellison, thank you for the work that I did with the Global Trade Office there. 5 years ago, when Afghanistan fell, I dedicated my life to refugees. And while we've discussed Operation Metro Surge, one thing we have not discussed tonight is Operation Paris, P-A-R-R-I-S. It's an Orwellian term, and for me it spells the end of refuge. Post-arrival refugee re-verification and integrity strengthening. And that's what my current job is at the Minnesota Council of Churches, where I am the Director of Refugee Services. And again, this all didn't just start this past January. Last January, January 20th, 2025, the executive order to end all refugees coming into the United States. Minnesota is a beacon of refugee resettlement. Donald Trump amended that with an executive order in May, saying that he would prioritize white South Afrikaners from South Africa. The Minnesota Council of Churches said, no way, we're out of that. We cannot support it. And while it was the right moral choice, it was a financial and emotional sledgehammer to say no to that. It was what we did. We resettled refugees. Now we are focused on our state contracts to help the refugees that are already here. Again, I just want to say that Operation Paris, it was racist, it was xenophobic, and over 100 of my clients at MCC were either arrested or pulled into the Whipple building. The stress was absolutely incredible. The stress, as the doctors have said, had a physical effect. Clients' babies were born premature. Pregnant refugee women who were here legally stopped going to their appointments. Personally, as a director and my staff working insane hours, I felt like my teeth were falling out. Lastly, I am also an Annunciation mother, and the stress that I felt during the ICE raids was equal, if not more potent, than what I felt on August 27th, 2025, when a mass shooting occurred at my daughter's church. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Andrew Lee, and I'm here representing the organization QuestScope. I'm an elementary school teacher, so I can be loud. I am not employed by them, nor have I ever been employed by them or paid by them, but the founder just is a close friend and asked me to come and share his story as he's out of town. You've heard a bunch of examples of commitments from the US government, from the state government, from our heart as a people that have been broken, and I wanted to share an example of one of those just an example. So about a year and a half ago, my family and a bunch of my friends had the honor of welcoming a family of refugees through Welcome Corps, which just allowed 5 citizens to sponsor a family. So we were able to sponsor a family of refugees to come settle here in Minnesota. We gathered our team, we bought all the things, we found the apartment, we got them everything, we rallied around them, and honestly, they came and now they're doing amazing. Their 4 girls are in school. They have a new baby, and they're doing well until March 5th, when the kids were about to go back to school. Of course, ICE had scared them away from school, and they were going to school online. And on March 5th, they received documentation that the refugee status was terminated. So they're here. This is their home now. All they want is peace. All they want is to be in a space that they can call home, and they've chosen to call this place home. And we have, as a country, we've sort of given up on them. We've broken that promise. They've followed every single rule. They're refugees. They've been vetted. They've been through interview after interview after interview. They actually were supposed to go to London, and then COVID happened, and they weren't able to go. So that was completely taken away from them now. And now they are feeling that this opportunity is going to be taken away. So what I want to say is, from Questscope, from myself, from this family, is that we've made a lot of commitments as a country and as a people, and I just thank the 3 of you so much for standing up for those commitments and not allowing those commitments to follow. And so thank you.
This is very subtle. Okay. Great. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're just going to hear from a couple of people who are going to give us some calls to action, and then we'll hear a little bit more from our AGs as we wrap up the evening. So we are going to hear from Amelia Gonzalez-Avalos, Greg Namacher, and Ribbon KJ. And you can come up in a different order if that's convenient. I think, Greg, you can probably just get here faster.
While we wait for Amelia. Hello, good to see all of you. So I'm Greg Namacher. I'm the president of SEIU Local 26, the union that represents 8,000 property service workers, vast majority immigrants, and our union has been under attack for the entire last few months with the ICE invasion of our town. But one of the beautiful things that our town did together is we stood up and resisted together. And so this is actually an invitation for everybody on May Day to come and celebrate all of the work that we have done together, both as workers and community members together. And so there are events throughout the morning, afternoon, and night that are going to be both a celebration of our collective power and an indication that we do have to stay ready to protect our democracy moving forward. So thank you again to all of you up here and the work that you're doing on that, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the streets.
May 1st.
Hello, Attorney Generals. Hi, Minnesotans. Hi, my name is Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos. I'm Executive Director at Unidos, Minnesota, and we know many of you because of our Monarca program, right? So let's begin by saying one thing that we say in every training. If we have an ICE officer in the room, you are free to stay, because the world we're building is a better offer than what you're getting right now from the federal government. And so I'd like to name that this nation has declared its commitment to democracy. And the main reason we are in this very moment is because the economic aspirations of democracy have long been denied and deferred to working families across the country, including black and brown Americans. And so I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back to normal. Normal was not good enough for us. And so before I jump into my call to action, let me name what have been the stakes for me. As we were organizing for this moment, we've been training people, and ICE officers began harassing me, my team, and my family right after Thanksgiving. And so they will follow us, they will try to get into our offices, they will go to Mercado Central without uniforms and start asking questions about me and people in our team. And one day they followed me home and I lost them. I live in Richfield, so I lost them somewhere in Edina. And when I came home, my father was terrified because they had been knocking on my door that day. And so long story short, we are in Metro Search. We decide that we have to go outside of Richfield to find a safe house because I can either organize or be distracted by these a-holes trying to keep me away from my organizing. And so there was a day that was very hard for our family because my husband and my father are both undocumented. And we decided to organize because we wanted to be free, because we wanted to build power. And my dad was like, is this worth it? Because I don't feel free. Because it looks like we have a target in our backs. And it looks like there's no way out right now. It doesn't look like there's a way out right now. And so I felt powerless in that moment. I wanted to run away. I thought that maybe I will go to Mexico and hide in a beach town and I will be fine. But then that week, there was an announcement that this administration wanted to invade Mexico. That there was some foreign policy trying to figure out how to send military to our towns. And in that moment, I realized that there was no place on earth where I can find if this country goes down the drain. And so the stakes are very big, not just for Americans. The stakes are big for the world. And so I just want to remind us that Abraham Lincoln called us the last hope on earth, but it was because of the nationalist aspiration of what America means for the world. It was because of democracy, the self-fulfillment of government for people, with the people, and by the people, and what that means for all of us. And so that is where I want to build a democracy that actually works for us. And so it's the time to take a role. We've been observers, we've been filming, but now we have to organize in every single precinct and every county to protect our electoral results. So we go to May 1st, and then we organize every single organizing unit we can find. A church, a school, a daycare, our workplace, our building, our book clubs, whatever it is. We organize and we build our democratic defense there, and we hold each other all the way until we have the new government on January 1st in Minnesota. That's the invitation, that's the call to action. I'm so clear about that, but I cannot do this alone. We need each other even more than ever. So thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Sorry for the time.
Thank you.
It's iceoutnow dot something.
It's iceoutnowmn.com.
Hello, my name is Rib. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm with Minnesota 5051. It sounds like you've heard of us, but we're a grassroots organization, and we're unhappy with Trump, and that's why we're here, and there's a lot of us. And I want to highlight that the fight isn't over. We've heard a lot of stories about the fight that has happened, but it's still not over. I had a rifle pointed at me in November, right after St. Paul Police Department told me they were there to keep me safe. I didn't feel very safe that day. I've had Hennepin County sheriffs try to arrest me after I left a protest that was declared unlawful. It wasn't. They were just, in the parking lot where people can stand around. But if that's dangerous, then we should probably know that. I've seen the state troopers of Minnesota bring LRADs, long-range acoustical devices, crowd control weapons. And I say that plural because there were several at No King's Day, No King's 3, just a couple weeks ago. So I want to highlight that we're here to fight Trump, we're here to fight ICE, but we have to remember that we need to hold our local police accountable as well, because when ICE leaves here, because they will leave here, they're not going to stay here. But when ICE leaves, we're still going to have the local police departments here. And they need to exist to keep us safe, because if that's not what they're going to do, then we're going to keep us safe. And that's what we're here for, because we keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who shared their story or shared on behalf of somebody else. We appreciate all of your time and for some of you, all of the emotion that it took to share your story with this room full of people and those who are watching us online. So we've covered a lot this evening, and I know we didn't get to hear from everybody, and we as a team in the Attorney General's office are still here to keep collecting your stories, so continue to send us your information and things that you want us to know. So again, thank you to everyone who contributed, and now we're going to give our Attorneys General a few minutes to give us some closing remarks. Let's see. Let's go backwards this time. We'll start with A.G. Rayfield.
Go, Dan, go.
Well, thank you again for inviting me out to Minnesota, Minneapolis. Absolute pleasure to be here. It's incredibly helpful for us coming from different states to be able to hear and listen to what's going on in other states and how we can work together as we're looking forward for this country. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I truly appreciate it. And also genuinely, and I know this was said, a lot of the stuff that was talked about tonight is incredibly personal. It's incredibly painful. It's invasive, but it's important to hear. So thank you.
And can I just say, Attorney General Rayfield, on behalf of Minneapolitans, we are a better bike town than Portland.
Oh, come on. We're both good.
Wow. Here's the thing. I'm not divisive like a lot of Minnesotans appear to be. I'm just going to say, you know, we're here in the spirit of togetherness.
I'd like to add to the thank to all of you all here, even those of you all who haven't had an opportunity to share, but certainly to all of you all who have had an opportunity to share with us. I recall a year ago when I came here for the first town hall, I was fueled by these stories, as I am tonight, and I'm fueled by the emotion. And Keith did the appropriate thing of thanking the lawyers within the Minnesota Attorney General's office, and I'd like to do the same with regards to the lawyers within the Illinois Attorney General's office. And what I want to share with you is the emotion is there with these lawyers as well. The passion is there with them, and there's a tremendous weight on their shoulders. These are many of them lawyers who could go off into the private sector and make a whole lot more money than I pay them. So they're not there for the check. They're there because they get to be American heroes in this time of crisis. And so I thank you all. Thank you, Keith, for having us here.
Thank you. So, friends, first of all, y'all see this big old Minnesota right here? Y'all can you see it in the back? Can you see all the green stars on it? Those are all the places that we visited in the last year. And maybe your town's up there, and if it's not, let's get it up there. We're prepared to do these kind of meetings every inch of the great state of Minnesota. And I don't mind going all the way up to Lake of the Woods right up there. Y'all know how far that is. Or anywhere, east, west, north, south, central, all. Because we're one state. And I want to thank everybody who's traveled here from greater Minnesota. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your story from St. Peter. All of you all who've come out here, we are one state.
It is an honor to have everyone here. The stories that you told, deeply moving. We heard personal accounts, and we heard from Aaron, who gave a researcher's perspective, extremely important. But we need the qualitative stories, and we need the data. We need all of that to tell a cohesive story. One thing I want to tell you guys, and I think you should know, is that we have a lot of colleagues. One of them, his name is Nick Brown. He is the Attorney General in Washington State. And he leads a committee on election protection. Now, just because he leads it doesn't mean he's the only one on it. All of us are working on election protection. We just make him call the meetings and chair them, but we're working together because election protection is extremely important. I want to thank the League of Women Voters who said we need more voting personnel to do election judges and make sure the elections happen. One of the ways we make sure we have a fair, safe election is we show up, get involved right now. I don't need an unfair advantage in the election. I just need a fair shot. And I feel that the folks in Washington are not, Washington, D.C., are trying to do something else. But we've got to make sure we protect these elections by being really involved. We need people to show up. We need people to vote. This is an official side event, so I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but vote for the people who don't detain your neighbors unlawfully. You know, vote for the people who don't shoot your neighbors in the street. You know, vote for the people who don't take away money Congress has said supposed to go to you. Vote for the people who believe in the rule of law and the Constitution. We've got to show up. We got to show up big no matter who you vote for. That's your business. But I will tell you that we must absolutely show up. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I want to ask you to go home safely, look after each other, and remember we live in, forgive me guys, the most wonderful state in the union. But we're very, very happy to have our friends from Oregon and Illinois, too. Let's hear it for Oregon and Illinois. Thanks a lot, everybody. Good night.